This is your Neepawa Town Council Debrief for the August the 20th, 2024 meeting. This week, Council heard from a delegation on the future of the handy van and brought attention to problems with wheeled vehicles on the sidewalk. Council reports were sparse this month, as many committees have taken some time off over the summer. However, the Yellowhead Board has been meeting to handle the problems they recently encountered with the ice plant and make some changes to the ice schedule for early September as they make repairs. As well, Summer Day Camp is winding down for the year, and the Children's Business Fair, which took place last week, drew 17 young entrepreneurs and sold about $1,700 worth of products and services. What's the big idea? A showcase for adult entrepreneurs. It's now in its 10th year and will take place in October. Manager of Operations Denise Kay updated Council on the maintenance work that his crews have been doing lately, including continuing to do some patchwork on the roads, wastewater treatment plant training, and contracted work to correct erosion at culvert ends and remove brush from the compost site. Sakay also addressed the upcoming closure of the railway crossing on Hurl Street. Uncontrolled railway crossings need to meet the standards of new legislation, and as this particular crossing will not be able to be completed before the regulations come into effect on November 28th, it will be closed up to 1 year to allow Transport Canada to bring it into compliance.
So with Transport Canada's new legislation on railway crossings, I've been working on some non-compliant ones for a number of years now. And due to the back and forth with the Canadian Pacific and the city, they just can't meet the timelines for the approval of one of our requests. So they've asked us to temporarily close one of our rail crossings. So this would be the rail crossing on Hurl Road. Seasonally, it's a seasonal road at this time anyway, but we do an official closure of it right now, just noting it's temporary, for a 1 year time period, till such time as they can complete the appropriate design for the new rail crossing, so it meets all new standards. That's kind of the gist of it there.
So is that our responsibility to need to close off those roads? Like, do we have to come up with some kind of barriers?
Yeah, well, I would imagine that CAPESIP would demand or check in that we physically close it. So we'll probably have to put some form of obstruction in place and signage, noting is a full closure at this point.
Do we have any idea if they'll stick to the 1 year sort of thing, or?
They should, because we'll put an expiry. So if we only know this is a temporary, noting that our temporary closure expires in a year's time, at that point that road's open again. Yeah. So it puts it back into their court saying they have to complete their design.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you said, it is a seasonal road, but there's a number of people who use it.
So just to be clear, the grade crossing regulations come into full effect on November 28th, 2024. Transport Canada must meet those regulations. So the work Denise has been doing over the last few years with the rail company has led us to the point where they understand November's not that far away and we're not going to meet the deadline. So the only option is, because it's not being met, is to close it until it is. This is not just random, it's legit.
Yeah, and it is a hard road. Like, it's got quite an angle on there. You could easily make a mistake there. So,
Council received a delegation from the Neepawa Handy Van, who gave them a rundown on where the service stand financially and what they need to be able to continue operations going forward. Government funding for the service has not increased in decades, while costs keep going up, and ridership has not bounced back to its pre-pandemic levels. Right now, they are looking for $20,000 a year from its 4 municipal partners combined to be able to continue to operate, and also need to find some additional funding sources to be able to fund replacement vehicles as they are needed.
So we know the handy van's an important service to our community in that, and so we know that you've been running into some challenges in that, and I guess what we're hoping tonight is that you just explain a little bit to us, help us understand what's going on with the handy van and just where you guys are at.
Okay, we'll let John do the talking. He's got all the numbers and everything in front of him there, so.
Our bank balance currently is $28,658 in the hole. Is where we're at, and that was just with our $15,000 government funding. Our government funding of $30,000 a year has been the same since my dad was on the handyman board, and he was a counselor for 18 years, and I've been a counselor for 14. We have never had an increase, ever. We lost, when the United Way pulled out, they were giving us $10,000 a year. We lost that right away, so that was helping out huge at that time. Our ridership before COVID, the count, I don't know if they were doing head count, I can't remember if they were doing head counts, but like in 18, we were at 10,879 per year. 19 and 97, 27. And then when COVID hit, like we were down to 3,100, 33. 23, we were back up to 5,098. We've got 3,324 so far this year. So our ridership is slowly coming back, but it's never came back to where it was. Basically, to get our money, we have to do our audit, which charges $3,500 to get our $30,000 from the government. That's a major requirement, it has to be done. So basically, take our grant minus our audit every year. And basically between our safeties and our auto pack and our audit is $12,300 a year, right there, just to basically operate to start with. We have a contract with Justin. Last one we signed up for 3 years, so we know what our cost there is going to be, but.
Right.
And all our big cost is on the front end of the first half of the year. From here on out, like, we shouldn't have big costs. We should be trying, able to recoup some. But we're getting too far behind. COVID just kind of left us in a major hole and we can't crawl back out of it too bad.
So there's 2 or 3 vehicles?
We have the big bus and 2 small vans. And the older one is like 2014 with 230,000 clicks on it already. We should be looking at replacing it, but we have no money to start that.
So the older van is 2014?
Yeah, the older, smaller van. The bus, I don't know.
That's before that.
It's before that, yeah. It's even older, so.
Could be 2006, somewhere in that.
Yeah. And very costly to run. It's got a big V10 in it. It's not cheap. We never make a lot of money with the bus if it's on the road, that's for sure.
And we haven't even thought of really about putting money away for replacement either. That's another big concern when we're looking at down the road, what can we do with the partners, how to start looking at replacement of these vans.
And one of our biggest costs was the newer van, the transmission went, so that was a $7,000 cost and we weren't really expecting.
So in your travels and that, with other communities and that, do you see any difference in the modeling, the way things are done here compared to other locations, or?
They had a seminar in Brandon, which I went and attended, like for the southwestern area for handy vans, just only. And it was the same, as far as everyone I talked to that day, like nobody's making money. There was one municipality there, she said they just went through the keys on the desk and said, you're not gonna help us, we can't float it. Some of them were doing volunteer drivers. Well, that's a whole another ball of wax if you try to start working with volunteer drivers and trying to organize stuff. Well, like we get enough rides, we need, like Justin there basically hired to look after the drivers. As a board, I don't want to be looking after who's driving.
No.
Who? That's not what I'm there for.
So through going to that meeting of the group and that, did you guys talk about rates, or do you know where?
Some were higher. I know we've discussed rates because we had our handy van meeting at noon here today. But there's, like Justin said, a lot of the people are regulars. They're on their whatever pension they get. Like there's not a lot of wiggle room. Like there, we even talked about how what's her name from Han there. Michelle. She has one client there. After all her tax or rents paid and expenses, she has $254 left in the month to buy groceries. Like seniors don't have a lot of wiggle room, and they're not up, and the government's not paying them a lot more. I'll tell you.
So explain that funding, like you were saying that it hasn't changed, like, so that comes out annually each year,
Yeah, from the provincial government.
and there's been no adjustment for that, how
Never.
long did you say?
It was brought up at AMM last year there, that they were requesting to increase funding for handy vans.
Yeah, I remember hearing them say that, but it's been a lot of years, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think basically from the beginning. If you go back that many years, well, 30,000 then took care of a lot of expenses, but we're not there anymore.
Yeah.
And then the 10 grand we were getting from the United Way helped out. And then there was a lady passed away and left the handy van about $30,000 one year, which helped us out greatly. That was before you were even on board prior to that, but, yeah. So kind of, I don't know what we kind of talked about today. Going forward, we're gonna have to look at all of us, all the municipalities involved here, like maybe $20,000 a year with extra funding, just to keep us floating. Because if the provincial government doesn't come up with more, I'm not sure, like, we don't, advertising, we talked about on the vans, but as soon as you get provincial funding like that, we're not allowed to do that. Like, we can't bring that extra. That's government's funding that, and that's not happening.
That's disappointing, actually.
Send you a picture.
And I'm sure there's businesses out there that would support us that way if we could, but we can't. We're not allowed to do
So as
that.
soon as you do that, you lose the funding from the
Yeah.
government.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, that's
It's,
fine.
it's
Yeah.
in their contract, it's not allowed.
It'd be a good traveling billboard for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
So and you say the bus doesn't make any money?
Well, yeah, but it doesn't go out much. Like, it's only on a, when we have to basis. We've upped the rates pretty high.
Like this was about 7, 8 years ago when I looked into the advertising on it, and then you couldn't. Maybe things have changed now.
No, I talked to Connie tonight, she talked
Okay.
to a person she knows in Burden because it was on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was their minor hockey bus that had the advertising. Not the handy van, they're not allowed to put the advertising on the handy van.
Okay.
She talked to, so.
But we thought of asking now, at least for the partners, we got something to work for budget if we start talking now.
Yeah.
And
So
making
what,
people aware of it.
so when you go through and budget, are you, like, how big a loss would you be having annually, or does it kind of ebb and flow, or what do you?
Well, our biggest problem is like their expense for the transmission here. And like cause that van only had 130,000 kilometers on it, and then the transmission fell out of it. So, which is, like, those Dodge minivans are usually bulletproof, like, they're a pretty good brand. But now to buy a new van, you only can go to an 8-seater. Like, they don't even make a smaller van anymore. Like, you're talking 175,000, 200,000 for a van.
Oh,
Like,
wow. So then that bus would be worse than that?
yeah. Yeah.
But when we bought the last one back in what, 2014?
19.
19, so yeah.
19.
It wasn't 175 then, you're probably 120 or something, maybe the way things have inflated so much.
Yeah.
It's not slowing down.
Possibly
Yeah,
correct.
and, you know, I truly empathize for people who count on the handy van as a mode of transportation, but, you know, in light of all that, I just don't see how, you know, and I think you guys being very proactive, number one, coming and talking to municipal governments,
Mhm.
you know, who want that service provided for our vulnerable citizens who need that transportation, but
Yeah.
I don't know how we don't also have to look at some of those fees that we do charge. I mean, if we know we're gonna be losing money every trip, which seems like that's the way it's going right now, just with, when we take the cost of the licensing, the fuel costs, the cost of replacement's gone up. We all know what's happened to minimum wages even just for that in
Well, I
the
know
last
that's
3
with
years.
Justin and his contract.
Yeah.
Like, I had that conversation with him. I said, you gotta realize you're looking at wage increases over the next 3 years.
I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to see a rate increase. I mean, the idea that we can hold the line there indefinitely just doesn't seem I mean, I guess as someone here that sits around the table, we have to make those decisions on taxation and things like that. I mean, the popular decision is to hold the line at zero, but we know that's not practical or
The only problem we have as a handyman is the senior population with limited income. And those are, you feel real mean to start targeting that group.
but it's not targeting, it's,
Well, they're the ones using it.
yeah,
So-
but I
think
understand, but it's,
The alternative is
it threatens the whole
you may
service.
pay a little bit extra, but like you say, it'll threaten the service and then it may not be there at all. So would they rather pay 50 cents extra a ride or not have a ride available?
Like maybe a small increment might not be
Yeah.
too bad, it might be acceptable.
Well, we're not saying
If you're
like
thinking-
double
No,
rates or
but
anything
that's
like
not-
that.
No,
It's
You're
just
thinking
like-
then you
Like I
lose
think you
everything.
do have to, like, inflation's irrelevant, it's.
As fuel
and
went
I
up,
know
we were
it's
having to
terrible,
increase
but-
just to cover costs because like just the rate of the price of fuel. It's kind of leveled at the moment.
Yeah.
If it stays there or not, like, as soon as it jumps, we have to raise our rate.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
So I know you've mentioned that, again, the funding hasn't changed for so many years and that, and you mentioned about, well, one community saying that, you know, they weren't gonna be able to continue. Is that kind of a trend that you see gonna be happening?
Well, at that meeting, and I actually went and looked up Dawson's budget, and they don't have handyman in there at all. But at that time, when I was at that meeting, the CAO was there. He was basically looking after the handyman in Dawson, and they were budgeting, along with what the government gives, they were putting 60,000 a year into it to keep it floating.
So that was the city themselves?
That
or
was the city of Dauphin.
surrounding area? or-
Yeah, but see, well, the accident, that was, they had other private ones, and that was a private one that actually got in that accident.
Okay, didn't
Going to
realize
the
that.
casino. That wasn't their actual handyman through the city.
So on your fuel, on your parts, on your repairs, do you collect the GST back?
Should be.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure she is, yeah.
And,
Because we're nonprofits.
oh, no, we've been arguing about the provincial tax one for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah, I don't think the provincial's an option.
And we've been doing fundraising as much as you can, but there's so much fundraising going on around the community too, it's hard to even talk fundraising for this.
Right.
It's tough.
So for the sake of the $30,000, would you consider sponsorship? Like if you could raise more than 30 by
Well, that's the
getting,
question, yeah.
Well, I guess, yeah, that would be the question. No, we've never gone out to lobby to see how much we could actually get.
right,
But
just a thought, like, you know,
Yeah.
the stride van or, you know, like,
Yeah.
right, lions, like, you know,
But we have a Western Caucus group in the Southwest Manitoba. Every month we have a meeting and handyman comment comes up every year, all the time. Like, everybody's having a hard time handling it, you just can't afford it. But you want to keep it for your seniors, like you don't want to lose what you already got for the seniors. And
Yeah.
if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be sitting here, so.
I would say more than you want to, it's a vital service, like it's,
Yeah.
it's not
And it's only
optional.
getting more demand with the new hospital out there, and you purchase land out on way further west yet. So like, there's gonna be more demand for that service. To doctor's appointments and.
And is there a lot out to specialists or that? Is there a lot of travel to going to doctors?
I would say, yeah, probably, there's a good chunk of
Justin
it.
does a lot
Yeah.
with the hospital and, yes.
And we do get calls from the hospital to take people home or possibly even to Brandon. Like, there is, they use us too at time to time, so if there's no other alternative, we'll get called if we're available to look after stuff like that, so.
And Justin was talking about kids and that for other outside activities, but by the time you start getting seat belts in there and car seats in there and somebody to administer it, liabilities, it's just something.
Transporting children under 5 years old is kind of a gray area. I'd have to talk to Autopath and see where you can stand on liability on that one.
If you can think of a way to make it work.
Yeah.
But I think as far as the money, like we sort of, we haven't been asking for any over the years, have we really, John?
No.
Just things caught
It was
up in
only
this
that one
issue.
year.
And we haven't been putting anything away for future replacement. That's the biggest concern right now too. Like, we should be doing these once every, 5 years? So you got a 10-year-old machine at the most or something like that? Like
How many municipalities are involved?
Rosedale, Westlake, Gladstone?
No.
Or no. Glenelg,
Glenelg, Lansdowne.
Glenelg, Lansdowne, and North Cypress Langford.
Yeah.
And Town.
Four of us.
Four of us, yeah. Like, we all spend money on places like the Yellowhead and that for the younger generation to keep their prices down. And yet we're not really giving a whole pile to our seniors who are a pretty important part of our community.
Yeah.
Han gets money from all of us,
Yeah.
somewhat per capita.
Yeah.
I think it's 50 cents or something like that. But they got a big increase in their government funding also.
Yeah.
We did, they got a 25% increase.
So you were saying, just as a suggestion, how were you looking at this 20,000 apiece? Like,
Well, basically, the same funding as what the care home's under is what we've used before,
oh, is that not familiar with?
percentage-wise. So-
Well, we were looking at 20,000 altogether, right?
Yeah.
Not each
Oh,
entity.
okay.
Yeah.
Just one,
20,000
amongst
with
everybody.
all four of us in on our share of that.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're kind of looking at.
Yeah.
So is that a per capita?
I don't know if they based it originally on the care home when that was done.
The care home must have been.
Because that percentage is
Capital
used on the
that they-
taxes, so it gets paid back to us now, I believe. It's the same formula.
But things have changed so much too, I wonder if that, going it per capita might be.
I like the idea we go along with the way hand is being funded.
Yeah, the same as hand.
You realize Neepawa is way higher now than where it was.
Yeah. But we also know
Yeah.
that the care home agreement is costing each and every single person in the town of Neepawa
Mhm.
to pay you guys every year. So we don't want to do that anymore to our ratepayers. So fairness would indicate per capita, not per the way of
The way hand does it.
was done, yeah.
So basically, you'd figure I'd take the 20,000, work on your population, and get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Which would be work too, that would be.
Yeah.
I don't have. an
Because
issue
up
with that.
until this point, the municipalities have not given handyman any money.
Only the one year we ran a deficit there, and then,
There is an agreement where the four entities cover the
Okay.
shortfall
Cover
at the end of the
the
day.
loss.
What that split is, I don't know. Do you know that, Colleen, or not?
No, when we actually look back at our records everywhere, every minute, everything we have nothing in our records that talk about how the handyman splits
funded.
any costs.
Okay.
So I would have to defer to the minutes of your board
okay.
to find that discussion.
'Cause I know Judy, when she was our
I'm not
treasurer,
saying it
she
doesn't
knew
exist,
what it
just
was.
we don't have any.
She knew the formula at that time.
Maybe she still
But I think Wendy does too, actually, I've talked to her
But
about it.
somebody must have a record somewhere.
Must be something.
Wendy was CAO when that happened with
But that's,
care home.
yeah, the thing is,
At that
like, we all
time.
understand the care home agreement, but there is nothing that said we're taking that and extrapolating it
No,
over to the
that's-
handyman board.
Yeah,
No,
that's
I
how.
have
it's-
nothing that speaks to that.
Okay. The per capita basis works. I don't have an issue with that at all. That's fine, dude. So,
So you're thinking of this being an annual ask that you
Yeah.
would, from all municipalities?
Yeah.
So then, would you still be asking then all municipalities to cover a deficit?
we shouldn't have a deficit.
But what if you do?
Yeah, I guess that's how those
Have the
rules are
same
written.
percentage, I would imagine you'd probably have to go that way, yeah.
Yeah.
If we had structured budget, I always like budget versus responding to emergency.
Yeah.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
we
Well,
don't get structured budget, if it did alleviate the risk of those sudden shortfalls, I would always defer the budget and plan.
Well, that's why we wanted to talk tonight, to work towards a budget, work towards a plan going forward. Like, you might not get the money right now, but I think we can function the way we are until everybody gets their budget done and work it out.
Yeah, no, that's a good approach, you're right.
The problem of scooters on the sidewalks has come before council again, and they are looking at ways to conduct some more public education on what is and isn't allowed on the sidewalk. MPI and the Association of Manitoba Municipalities are also lobbying for some provincial regulations covering powered personal transportation devices, including but not limited to scooters and e-bikes. In the meantime, council asks that if you are on wheels, please respect pedestrians on the sidewalk.
Correspondence going.
We just have the one item which actually relates to 3 different concerns that have been expressed regarding e-scooters around town. This is a very difficult topic. Denise brought it up, I think, at one of our last meetings. You know, the use of sidewalks, you look at the size of the wheels that are permitted on sidewalks, because it's normally related to children using them or whatnot. Just so the public knows, it is a very big issue. Manitoba does not have legislation to regulate e-scooters. This does not give a municipality any supportive legislation to assist with enforcement. We did draft a bylaw. A bylaw falls flat when you haven't got anything to support any actions that you take under that bylaw, should you be necessary to go to court or anything, because there is no remedy available there for it. We've been trying to gather information from communities in Manitoba and across Canada to see how they're dealing with the issue. And most of them are really taking the avenue of education. There is really nothing. They're supporting, people have to follow the rules of the road, all of those kinds of things. Even here, we spoke to the local RCMP, who, they're going to try and, have young people get off the sidewalks. But then where do we send them to? It makes it difficult. We are working on an active transportation route around town. It's going to take a while to facilitate that. It's going to require some pavement or some cement and whatnot, and creating the connectivity paths throughout Neepawa, but that's a little ways out as well. I guess we just need to ask the public to respect people walking on the sidewalk if you are on wheels of any sort. And just the last thing is, we also understand Manitoba Public Insurance is evaluating the impact of the various electric devices that people are starting to use, whether it's a hovercraft or a hoverboard, e-scooters, e-bikes, whatever. There needs to be rules in place that then gives municipalities the ability to take maybe a little bit better enforcement action. So unfortunately, even the bylaw officer, you call somebody, there's a scooter in front of a giant tiger. By the time we send somebody out there, they're long gone. It's almost impossible to deal with this. So we are going to try still continuing our vein of education. I understand, I think the Rotary possibly is going to do a little session on e-scooters or something, and maybe I've got the wrong group. But any help any community organization can give to getting the message out there would be fabulous.
Yes, no, I understand. I'm pretty sure, did we not hear that AMM was trying to lobby as well for some? Yeah, it is a problem, and some of these new ones are fast, really fast, so.
And quiet.
Yeah.
Like you don't hear them coming.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Also covered were a short public hearing for a variation order, increased tipping fees, an application to the storefront improvement program, opt-in legislation for employee protection for public interest disclosures, preparation for future expansion of the water treatment facility, and the regular financial report. If you have comments, questions, or topics that NACTV can help clarify or expand on, please contact us at 204-476-2639 or by email at nactvnews@gmail.com. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.